I do believe to my core of my being that when you have great messaging with a great offer, it solves a lot of problems in your business. And I do believe to my core that you don't really need the best strategy in the world. In fact, simple strategies, simple basic funnels, simple basic launches can perform amazingly when you just have the right offer combined with the right messaging. When people feel heard, they feel understood, that you get them inside and out, you know what exact problem they're going through, you know the most painful problem they're going through, you know what they do to try to fix it that's not working, you know their thoughts, their concerns, all the issues that's going on. You show it and demonstrate a deep understanding of who you're speaking to. Sales start to happen. And there are ways to incorporate all of that stuff inside of your content, inside of your webinars, inside of your funnels and ads to improve the results all around. And today we're sharing a story of a student of ours, Cori Stern, who did exactly that, who came into the program. And I remember on her call, I did the sales call with her, and I remember getting on the call and she goes, Brandon, I want to get to $10,000 months. Do you think that's possible? And I said, without a doubt, absolutely yes. And then she said, well, I really want to get to like 20,000. I remember thinking, yeah, I think that's possible. I think we can do it. I think it's possible. And I won't share where she's at now, although the title of this episode sort of gives it away. But within a year, she was able to create a machine of a business that is pumping out booked calls, bringing on new clients, and working for her even when she decides to take the summer off and spend with her kids. And we're going to share that entire story on this episode. So if that sounds interesting to you, well, keep on listening.
Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Today, we have an amazing episode lined up for you. We have a guest interview, but we have a guest interview from someone who has seen incredible growth over the last year. This is someone that I have worked with personally, someone that has come through our programs in the past. And when this person reached out and said, Brandon, I just wanted to let you know it's October and we've already hit our goals of what we set out to do this year. My instant reply was, I'm really excited and happy, but also can we have you on the podcast to talk about what you did? And so today we have guest Cori Stern on the podcast. And when I asked her what her business name was, she's like, you know what? I don't even really have, I don't really have one. It doesn't really matter because what I've been doing doesn't come down to having a business name or not. So that's, you know what, guys, that's lesson number one. And we can dive into that later. But Cori, welcome to the podcast. Glad to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm really excited. I'm excited for a number of different reasons. I think the first reason why I'm really excited is because I know the niche and industry that you went after is, I'm assuming, kind of small. Or it's very focused around one very specific problem. And this is something that I tell our students all the time is like, if you can sell one thing to one person solving one major problem, it's the easiest way to scale. And it sort of feels like that's what you were able to do this year. And I would love to get into that story. But before we do you mind just telling the audience about who you are, what you do, and all that good stuff?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Cori Stern. I'm a child behavior specialist, and I work directly with parents, coaching them through the different ages and stages of development, specifically, navigating all the behaviors that come along with every age and stage. This is what I was doing prior to very generalized approach prior to kind of niching down. Yep. Which we can segue to, but parents are my jam.
Yeah. And because I know you took that sort of that generalized approach, and when you're a child behavior specialist, there's probably a lot of different things that you can do. What are some of the examples, I guess, of things you're trying to help people with and solve?
Yeah, so prior to like really niching down, I was focusing on supporting parents through like those power struggles, how to stop yelling, how to get their kids to listen to them, how to create deeper connection with their kids. And some parents came at me with needing support with picky eating, and some with sleep struggles, and some with general transitions in and out of the house or in and out of activities, transitioning into school. It was kind of very blanketed. Like it was a little bit of everything
Right.
at one point.
And what were the biggest problems with that? Like, why was that such an issue for you?
Yeah. So the biggest problem I would say with what I was doing prior to this is that my head thoughts and ideas were split in a million different directions. I felt completely overwhelmed with trying to kind of package a very specific approach to be able to hand parents in a way that I could help them effectively, but then over time scale it in
Right.
order to create the business model that I was going after. And I kept coming back to the same thought in my head, which was like, I can talk to all the parents and on the spot give them all the solutions, but I don't know how to generalize this in a way to push it out to more and more people. It was
Right.
just too generalized. It was too
Yeah.
much.
And that's the thing, is when we can solve a million different things and we bring that to our message and our marketing, it's like, and we've all heard it, it's like you apply it to no one because no one feels like you're talking directly to them.
And I think that's exactly what was happening, because even the
Yeah.
content I was trying to put out was always about something different, like different
Yeah.
topics, different points of view, different ideas. So it felt overwhelming for me, and I would imagine a little confusing for my audience.
Yeah, it probably was. And like they would come in for one problem, and then the next day you're talking about something different that's not relevant to them or relatable. And like I always tell people, like, I think we can build to being able to do that, but that requires big brand. Like you have to have that big brand authority to be able to do that. And I always use Tony Robbins, like how he talks about business and personal development and then spirituality. And he can kind of hop around because he has the brand authority to do that. But when we're starting out, it's very difficult to be able to get any momentum. And I know you mentioned niching down a few times, and so you're at this, like, I guess, just generalized spot, and it didn't feel like anything was really landing. What was the first step to moving out of that? What did you do at that point?
For me, the first step was to get really good at listening to what my people were telling me.
Hmm.
This was like a big learning curve for me because I'm a problem solver. I
Yeah.
just want to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
I just want to tell you how to fix things. I started to really very mindfully listen to people and try to look past what they were telling me on the surface.
Yeah.
And I was hearing a lot of the same things coming from a lot of people that were reaching out to me. But then I started seeing people coming to me specifically with needs around problematic behaviors that were popping up around potty training, toilet
Mm.
training.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why, but I don't know if it started with like a word of mouth thing, but I started, re- I really liked the results I was seeing. They were just very tangible. And more of those parents started coming to me over time. So there was a bit of an opportunity looped in here.
Right.
And the more I went kind of online to look at the research and look at what other experts out there were doing, there was a big gap
Yeah.
in support around this. So I just, again, saw an opportunity here. I was listening to what people were saying. I was listening specifically to what these potty training families were coming to me with. And at one point, this light bulb went off that just said, oh my gosh, this is so much more than the kind of generalized approaches out there that are offering all this advice on how to potty train your kiddo.
Right.
And then I learned from you to sit in silence a lot with my thoughts.
Yeah.
And it all kind of just started to make sense.
Mm.
And when it started to make sense to me, I mean, at the time I was working one-on-one with a lot of these families, as always, problem solving and giving them solutions. And it became very clear to me that there was an approach here that I could create a framework for
Mhm.
that would allow me to support a lot of people, but still in a way that I could customize it for them based on their family's needs.
Yeah.
And it took me time to kind of come up with that framework, which was a huge learning curve for me. But it came to me. It never had come to me before with all the other stuff I was doing.
Right.
So it happened.
It all worked out. Well, there's a couple things I want to highlight here. A couple like lessons that I think just in that part of the story are really important to highlight, which is number one. I think the first lesson is that when you say you niche down, I want to bring clarity to people, because the way that you did it wasn't like, hey, I'm just going to pick this random category of where I'm going to go into. And I think that's a terrible way for people to niche down. What you did is you focused more on what's the number one problem that people are dealing with right now, and I'm just going to tackle that problem. And that's how I tell people to niche down all the time, is that don't pick a category. You pick an identity you want to work with, which is what you did. You picked parents, and then you pick what is the biggest problem they're having, which is the potty training issue. And then it's like, and then what are the values of the people that I want to work with? And that's how you niche down. And that's how you found that little category to sort of go after, which is great. But number two, you also paid attention to people's behavior. You weren't just guessing at what to go after. You actually paid attention to what are they saying, what's beneath the surface there, because sometimes they'll tell you stuff that they don't actually want. And that's why I tell people all the time is look at the behavior of people. Like, what content are they watching? What are they saying? What are they saying on the sales calls? What emails of yours are they opening the most? Those are all indicators of what they actually want. And if you could focus your messaging on that, it's going to make sure that you're sort of saying and focusing on the things that they already want, which makes sales a lot easier. So with that, once you kind of sort of figured out, here's the problem that I want to go after, and you created a framework around it, where did you go from there? Like, did you just start pushing out content? Did you just start doing webinars? Did you do all of it? Like, what happened once the sort of the framework was developed?
Yeah, that's a great question. So once the framework was developed, I put together a free webinar, to start testing to see if this would resonate with people.
Yeah.
I'm big on, again, like I'm big on the data. I want to know for a fact what works, what doesn't, what people need, what makes no sense to them. So I put a webinar together based on my framework, and ran it, no joke, for a year straight.
Yeah.
Every other week.
Yep.
And constantly testing and trying and tweaking, asking for feedback. And it was super effective, super, super effective.
Did you get results right off on the first one, or did it take a couple tries?
I got results right on the first one,
Lovely.
which I did not anticipate,
Yeah.
which was so cool, because that was very validating to me that, like, okay, this is a thing.
Yeah.
Clearly it's resonating.
And I think, was your price point a lot lower then too? I think you raised it over the.
I've raised it a few times now. Yeah. So
Okay.
it was a lot lower. I started off actually quite low, because I wanted to make sure that before I felt entirely confident to sell a bit of a higher ticket item, that this was something that was actually going to have impact on the families that needed the support. So I needed that validation in order to feel confident to say this actually works. I wanted to validate the value,
Right.
pretty much. So I needed that feedback from my audience to know that what I was delivering was actually making a difference for them.
I don't think there's a problem with that. Like, everyone's like, well, I need to charge because we always say, like, charge your worth and charge your value. And it's like, well, It's all arbitrary. You're just making it up. Like, here's what I think, and here's what I think my value. But what I tell people is like, that's not the most important thing when you're first starting out. The most important thing is to actually get sales. Like, get a webinar that's actually producing sales for you. So you're getting customers coming in, you're testing your idea. But more importantly, it's like, you're gaining the confidence, like you said, like in your product, but also in your sales process. Because I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when you start making sales, your confidence of selling it, especially when they're getting results, just goes through the roof. And then that allows for the higher prices to start being something that happens. Is that sort of what you experienced?
You're 100%, 10% right. And still a year later, I still feel the same way. I'm all about charge your value, charge what you're worth, but I need to know. I mean, we all have our perspective on
Right.
what is valuable. And I wanted to just make sure that what I was putting out there, other people saw the value in it so
Yeah.
that I could push it further.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Do you mind sharing revenue wise where you were before you made all these shifts?
A year ago, when I started to when I niched down and I really went full force on this and I moved away from the more generalized support I was providing. Okay. I would say I was reliably, I don't know, I would say generating around $5,000 a month
Okay.
on sales.
Yep. That's pretty
Okay.
good. That's decent.
It was good, but I very clearly remember saying to you, Brandon, I want a new baseline and I want it to be 10K a month,
Yeah.
like minimum. And I think the second I said it out loud and I put it into the universe, along with niching down and creating a framework, I don't like creating content. I don't like spending my time on social media and staring at my phone only because I'm on my computer all day with my coaching and my clients and my sales team. Like, I'm doing all the things online all day. Social media, to me, that's just my own personal thing. It feels like a suck to me. I don't love doing it. But I do find that, and I think I said this to you, like over time, I've been creating less and less and less content while my revenue has just grown and grown and grown. And I think that all kind of evolved over time with really dialing into the messaging. But back to when I started, it was steadily 5K a month. My goal was to get it to 10K a month.
Yeah.
And we have far surpassed that
Yeah.
since.
Is it
So
safe? Where are you guys at now monthly?
like we're anywhere, I mean, it ebbs and flows as does everything, but like we're seeing anywhere from 25 to 40K a month
That's
right now.
insane. That's
Yeah.
amazing. And
Yeah.
it's still on the one product, yeah? For right now?
It's on the one product, but
Okay.
we've worked in renewals
Okay.
to the product,
Yes.
which we're seeing is being quite successful too.
Okay.
So
All right, I'm gonna come back to renewals. There's so
yeah.
many things I still want to talk to you about. So like but
Okay.
I want to take it in steps, and I realize I'm
Yeah.
getting a little bit ahead of myself now. So we'll come back to the renewals. I want to pick up with where you were, which was just starting out. You're doing these webinars. My advice to people is just do it as much as you can every week. Like, just fine tune. And we've done webinars 24 weeks in a row sometimes. We've also invited people back, and you were doing them bi-weekly and fine tuning. Were you creating a lot of content at this point, or was it mostly just giving out like freebies and ads? Or like, I guess my question is, what did your organic content look like, or traffic generation look like back then at that point?
So I created a Facebook group
Okay.
to like bring this community into a centralized location where
Mhm.
I could really connect with people, get them onto my webinars, get them coming back to the webinars, follow up with them from the webinars. So a lot of my organic growth first started by creating this Facebook group and funneling people into the Facebook group once they opted in for my webinar, which I was running ads to from the get-go. I took a leap of faith there. I invested in some ads, and two things happened from that. We got people showing up to the webinar, but we also directed people into a free Facebook group to create a community. Within that community, what I started doing a lot in the beginning was asking a lot of questions in the group, getting people to respond, starting conversations with people. I wanted to know directly from the community what they were experiencing, what they were going through, what was working for them, what wasn't working for them in terms of the strategies they were implementing and the advice they were being given. So it served as two functions. It allowed me to do a lot of market research,
Yeah.
but it also allowed me to connect with a lot of people who we were then able to pull through our funnel to get onto sales calls or discovery calls to then convert them into paying clients into the program.
I think so. Well, let's put it this way. I tell the team all the time, I don't say this to the students as much, but I say to the team all the time is you can tell the people that understand their people the most are the ones that figure out their messaging the fastest. And the one, like, you can tell when someone struggles with their messaging, it's not because they're not great with communication. It's because they literally don't know the person they're trying to sell to. They don't know what they're doing or what they're experiencing or what their thoughts are or what the biggest problem is. And everyone gets stuck in this trap of like, let me regurgitate my education and just my education on you. And a lot of times that overwhelms people, or it's just not relevant to them. It doesn't demonstrate you actually understand what they're going through. It doesn't make them feel heard. And I think and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think because you put in the work to understand your people, what probably started to change with your communication and your messaging is that people felt like you were speaking directly to them and only them. Like you were inside their head, you were in their house. How the heck did you know that that's what my kid was doing, or this is what we're experiencing? Would you agree with that?
I do agree with that because every single day I get someone sending me a message saying, it's like you are in my head and you are in my house and like my thoughts. It definitely helps that I myself as a parent, I don't have I support parents specifically who are struggling with toilet training.
Right.
And this isn't toilet training 101. These are parents who have tried to get their kiddos on the toilet and just there's a lot of toilet or elimination anxiety involved. And kiddos start to withhold, which leads to a whole other set of problems. So it's very, very specific. I don't have my own personal story to take people through because I didn't go through this with my kid, but I am a parent. I have very aligned values with these other parents because we all want healthy and happy and resilient kids.
Yeah.
And I've used that a lot to connect with them. So the connection piece, but like the validation and understanding 100% has, I think, qualified me as, the person who can in fact solve their problem that they're going. Yeah.
Well, it's like a doctor, it's like a doctor who's treated cancer patients for the last 30 years will have a deep understanding of what people are thinking and going through. Even if they've never personally had cancer themselves, you still know how to treat it and talk and communicate. And that's what it comes down to is, do I understand where you're at emotionally? Do I understand what you're physically actually going through? Do I understand the fears and concerns and worries you have around this issue? Do I understand the things you've tried that haven't worked? Like all of these things show and demonstrate a depth of understanding. And I do believe where the world is going, the more depth and understanding and compassion that you can show your people through your communication, the more trust they're going to gain in your ability to solve the problem and want to work with you. It's just how you create desire and demand.
Absolutely.
And so you started to sell this on webinars. You're doing it bi-weekly, which I love. What was the price point at that point? Do you remember?
It was about $1,200.
Okay. And then where's it at now?
Now it's at $2,500.
Okay.
And we're going to bump it one more time before the new year.
I love it. I love that.
Yeah.
And I know that one of the issues that you first started having, which is a great problem, and this is usually when people start working with us and we can get things working, their next big, I remember, I don't know if you remember Courtney Elmore or not, but she was in the program, I think the same time as you. She had the exact same problem, which was, I'm getting too many sales calls. I don't have enough time to do the sales calls, plus all this other stuff. And there's this bottleneck. So how quickly did you start to experience that issue?
I mean, very quickly, for lack of better terms.
Yeah.
It all happened very, very fast. And I think because people people were kind of experiencing this, like, you are speaking my language, you know what I'm feeling, you know what I'm thinking, and there's no one else talking about this out there. Like, just like people were booking in calls like left, right, and center. And we had to refine that process to make sure the people booking in were people that were our ideal clients that we wanted to work with.
I see. Yep.
Which we've kind of, we've figured it out at this point, because there was one point in time where I was like, we will talk to anyone and everyone, just
Yeah.
book in a call, which I think we needed to go through again to like hear what people needed and what they were saying.
Yeah.
But it happened very quickly.
Well, and I think that's such a beautiful thing too, because in the beginning you're like, I need sales. Anyone who's willing to be on the phone with me, just book a call now. And after a while, you're like, oh my God, I'm so tired of talking to people that are just not the right fit. And so to have that luxury it's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
It was, and I don't take it for granted. It was, at one point it was a lot of people who, yes, I want the help. Yes, I need the help. I'm here because I need you to help me. But they were getting on these calls either because they wanted like the help right then and there.
Yep.
And no, I'm sorry, I can't do that right now. It's way more complex than that. Or people who just didn't qualify for, just in terms of what this program who this program was meant to serve.
How did you start to filter those people out? What did you do to make sure that only the right people are getting on those calls?
I started to make it mandatory that if you were booking in a call, that if you were co-parenting, both parents come to the call.
Oh, love it.
Because I didn't want the one parent. We had a lot of parents coming in being like, this is great, I have to go talk to my spouse or my partner. And then it was like 1,000,001 follow-ups to make sure they spoke to them to relay the messaging. And we know that the messaging probably didn't get conveyed the same way.
Yeah.
So we started making that mandatory. Then we started, when they filled out a form to book in the call, we just put in some simple questions to make sure that they were ready to invest into support. That was a big one. That was a big qualifier, because there were so many people that, again, just wanted like the free information on the call. But we made it very clear that like, this is a call to learn about the program. We're going to tell you how we can help you. Yeah. Are you ready to invest? Both parents, if you're co-parenting, must be on the call. And now what we've done most recently is we've started sending out a very simple, I wouldn't call it a sales page, but almost like a program information page that has all the program info, what it includes, what it does, and the pricing on it. It took me a long time to offer up the pricing of the program before getting on the call with them. Yeah. But we just had so much coming at us that I wanted people coming to the call that knew exactly what to expect, so they can make the decision beforehand if this was just like way out of their budget or expectation.
Yeah.
And I was nervous about that, because I thought people are not going to show to the call, but people still come to the calls, and they're more of the right people. So,
well, I love that. And it's very interesting, because my advice 90% of the time is to not do that. And the reason why is because people are literally making a decision to buy or not off of price. And sometimes that's not always the best place for people to be making decisions. But when when you get to a place where you have so many people trying to come on these calls, and you're, like, it makes sense to do that, because it's just another filtering process. And I'm sure it probably makes the sales calls so much easier to close when that's off the table.
Yeah, it's a game changer. I mean, we still have to work through all the objections and make sure they understand the pricing and everything. But now that they're coming with an expectation, it actually, I feel a lot more comfortable with it, because I don't have to pitch it and work through the objection. We work through the objections throughout the process, but when it gets to the end and they're like, well, we have to talk about it, or, I can right away just say, all right, well, tell me what your hesitations are.
And I know in the beginning we had to work through, and I know you and I were talking a little bit on Voxer about like how to overcome some of the pricing objections and stuff like that. How did you overcome those? Do you have like a line or a way of doing it, or is it just kind of different for every single person on their situation?
still trying to overcome them.
Man, I haven't figured it out yet. I don't know. It's
You
still,
know what? I'll tell you the most recent one that I have found a lot of comfort with is I go through these amazing calls with these parents. We connect. They tell me, I oftentimes I'm talking to parents who are in tears. They're just, it's a very emotional thing. They're very vulnerable. So, I try to come at it with the most compassion. So like we have these amazing conversations and I tell them in that moment whether or not I feel confident that I can help them. I often do. I tell them exactly how the program works. I tell them, the steps I'm going to take them through. I check in to make sure this is something they feel good about. They feel the process is going to work for them. My framework resonates with them. And it's always yes, 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 yes.
yeah,
And then I say, all right, this is the investment. This is how much it costs. And oftentimes it's, okay, I wasn't expecting it to be that much, or I have to talk to my partner, or, oh, I don't know if I can afford that.
right.
I have recently become very comfortable saying to them, I totally understand that. I can appreciate that. However, if this is something you are seriously considering, I want you to feel so good about this decision you're making. I want you to feel confident about it. I want you to feel good about it. I want you to be excited about it. So I need to know right now if there are any thoughts, hesitations, ideas you have in your head, questions that you want to talk through, because I want to make sure you have all the information you need to make a decision that's going to make you feel really good.
Yeah. I love that.
And that's felt really good for me.
Yeah.
And it's opened up a lot of really interesting conversations on their receiving end.
I think what it does is it just creates a very safe environment for them to be honest with where the real objection is. Because I know on sales calls it's like that happens a lot where people can get really aggressive and it's not a very, you don't feel like it's a very safe environment to really be honest. So you just make up lies to get off the call.
Yeah.
And that's terrible, like for a salesperson, because you need to get to the root cause of why they're not making the decision. And so I love what you're doing because it just allows that safe environment to really dive down into what they're going through. And I would also imagine too, is that because we see this in our businesses, sometimes people know they need to do it. They know that it's going to help, but they're just scared. Like it's just a scary decision. And then when you make them feel safe and empowered, the fear kind of fizzles away. And then now they have that clarity of thinking and they're just like, okay, this is what I should be doing. This is what I need to do to solve that problem.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm again, like I'm testing and testing and trying out different things.
Yeah.
But right now, this one feels good. I still sometimes feel very like the second they say, oh, it's too expensive. I don't know. I got to think about it. I sometimes freeze in that moment too to be like,
Yeah.
but what is it? What is it?
Yeah.
Because I've learned from you guys that a lot of the times it's not about the money. It's about these fears. It's about insecurities. It's about their past experiences, their own confidence in themselves to be able to follow through in it. So I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah. Well, you're doing something right. So it's working. But now like when we start working with people and they start getting to the level where you're kind of at in the story, we talk about back end offers. How do we increase revenue this way? And I think a lot of people think in order to grow a business, it's about shoving as many leads down a funnel and making more of the initial sales that you've made and going bigger with it. And sometimes it's easier just to focus on the back end, which means, and I always believe that a good online business, course business, coaching business, 50% of your revenue comes from back end and 50% comes from the front end. And so one way to do that is renewals. And you did bring that up earlier about the renewals. Another way to do it is sell more products to people, but it sounds like you are in the renewal stage now. So how's that going? How did that come up? Is it the same offer? Just continue more time? Like, tell me more about this renewal process that you have.
I definitely hope we will get to the point of selling more products over time, but there's things I need to achieve first for sure. The renewal feels very natural to me because my program right now, it's structured for 12 weeks of unlimited support. So I take them through my process for 12 weeks and coach them every single week. So it's a lot of touch points. Now, very naturally, some kids will kind of graduate out of the process within the 12 weeks, which is exciting because 12 weeks, there's no more potty training problems. They're good to go.
Yeah.
Yay for the family. And genuinely, I'm always so happy when that happens.
Right.
But every kid is on their own trajectory here. I don't measure in my program, I don't measure anything by time because that is such a stressor for parents. And it just is counterproductive to what we're trying to achieve within my framework. So I don't measure things by time. I always say to parents in the beginning, 12 weeks is not a benchmark. It's not a milestone. I've built it out. It's a sweet spot for really good progress to happen. Now, full transparency, some kids at the end of the 12 weeks, they're great. But at the end of the 12 weeks, some kids need more time. And as a result, some parents need more coaching. So I set this expectation up at the very, very beginning. So they know that they have 12 weeks of me unlimited to support them.
Right.
And if they need more support beyond the 12 weeks, number one, that's not a bad thing. You haven't failed or anything. Like I'm talking to you every week. There's no way you can possibly fail at this.
Right.
And number two, it's fine. Like it's good. And there's an option for you to continue. Now, given the nature of what I'm coaching them on, I renew them on a month-to-month basis.
Okay.
Because some kids need 1 month, some kids need an additional 6 months. So I always tell the parents, it's what's ever going to feel best for you. If at that 12-week mark, you feel like you need that continuity, you need the accountability, you need that coaching, I'm going to be here for you. But if you feel confident and like you've got the tools you need and you're good to go, amazing. So I always check in with them at the 10-week mark to kind of get an idea of where they're at in their process and their journey. I let them know what their options are. And then at that 12-week mark, they either click renew or they graduate out.
I love it. I love that.
Yeah.
So when you came up with the pricing, was it as simple as saying, well, here's what they paid for the 12 weeks. I'm just going to divide it by 3 to figure out the monthly, or did you do something differently there?
I'm testing.
Testing. I don't know yet.
You know what? I just started doing this a few months ago, to be honest, because again, like we're still so young in this, we're only a year into this process, right? So I only started a few months ago and I wanted to make it such a no-brainer decision for them.
Yeah.
So I started it off quite low.
Yeah.
And we're slowly increasing it over time. It's nowhere. No, it doesn't. I would say it's equivalent to, it's like what a week's worth of support would be if I broke down the price in the program and doing it for like a month.
But I love that. I love that model of just like, let's just do something low. So it's a no-brainer, get the process working, see how it goes. And then you can just increase it over time if you want, and you'll find that sweet spot.
Again, well, that's it. It's like I have to, as I'm like still fine tuning to find the sweet spot with the pricing and the offer of my program. It's the same with the renewals. Like I want to see where parents feel comfortable. And kind of, I think we can still go a little bit because at this point they're so invested in the process. They're so bought in.
Yeah.
They're seeing the progress. They don't want to let go because they don't want to slide backwards.
Right.
So we're there already. Right. So you're
close.
We're testing.
How much of your revenue would you say is coming from renewals right now versus the front end sales?
25% at this point.
Pretty good. That's good. Well, I just love it because it's also, even though it's 25% of revenue, there's not really any expense attached to that. So like there's always going to be the customer acquisition cost on the front end. So even though you're bringing in more revenue, it's like, well, how much do we have to spend in ads and time and all of that stuff to be able to get that sale? This is like free. They're like free sales essentially. There's no client acquisition at all. So that's what's so beautiful about it. And that's why renewals are so great, because there's like, I don't know if you have a sales team right now or not, but like there's no sales commission on any of it unless you're doing as long as you're doing it yourself, or it's just auto. So there's just a lot less expenses attached to it, which is great.
It's a bonus. It's a really nice thing to do. And I have to say that the clients that do come through the program, they're obviously seeing results and they're seeing the value. And I've had multiples reach out for a support in other areas, right? Which I'm like, okay, so here we go.
Yeah.
Like, eventually this will be a thing where I will have like a next step to this that maybe isn't potty training focused, but it's
Yeah.
something else. But
Well,
that's like a 2025
I
situation.
love that. And I see this all the time. In fact, I was just talking to a student the other day who had like 4 different products on 4 different things to 4 different people. And they're like, how do I message all of this? And I'm like, I think it's just going to be easier to pick one. And then I'm not saying no to those other things, but like those are down the road. It's not a no, it's a not yet. And so, and you're living proof of that. If you're like, let me just figure out the major problem that they have. Let me create an offer and messaging and marketing around this thing. Let me build out the system, the sales system. Let me build out the fulfillment system. Let me build out the renewal system. And then now we're going to incorporate something else. And this is for me, I think this is where true scalability comes in scaling businesses, because it's under control, but you're giving 100% of your effort to this one thing that people actually need, and you're living proof of it. And I love that.
Thank you. It's been, I have to tell you one more thing. I actually don't know if I ever told you this part of the kind of systems we've built out, but this summer, I really wanted to take the summer off and not work so much, which it took me a while to figure out how to do, because I mean, I was going to stay very present for my families that were enrolled in my program. Like,
Right.
I was going to continue the coaching and still check in with them. And that was very manageable. But I wanted to put this, I wanted a break from the discovery calls. I
Yeah.
wanted a break from like all the engagement that I was putting in online to try to get people going. So I actually said to myself, let's test something out this summer and let's try to set up an evergreen funnel.
Mm,
So what I did was we built out a funnel to run the webinar evergreen style.
love it.
And I will have to say that 80% of our sales now, even though we're back to running the live classes, are coming from the evergreen funnel.
That's
And
amazing.
the only reason I felt confident running the evergreen funnel was because at one point in this testing phase earlier in the year, when we were running these live classes every other week, I was having people purchase the recording if they wanted the recording. I was never, initially I was sending out the recording after the class. I think I might have been inspired by you, because you might have been doing this at one
Yeah,
point.
we do that. We still do sometimes.
Yeah. I wanted to test it out to see, and it did really well. Like, it covered our ad spend, which was beautiful. And again, watching the behavior of our people and saying, all right, people are cool with like not coming to the live class and watching this replay, and they'll even pay for it.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this summer we're going to run. I mean, I did it as a free evergreen webinar, but we're getting a ton of discovery calls booked in through it, which
I love
is
it.
so now I have these two funnels running at the same
Oh
time,
my
the
gosh.
live
Well,
and the evergreen. Yeah.
I mean, I forgot that we did that. I forgot that I had told you to sell the replay. And so, just for everyone listening, is one of the things we've done, which is it increases show up rates, because now it's like we're only doing it live. You don't get the replay automatically, but you can buy it for X amount of dollars. And then the intention of that was to increase the show up rate, but also to try to make some of your ad spend back. And it sounds like you were making close to all of your ad spend back by doing that.
I was covering it and more.
Oh my
Like,
gosh,
it
you're
was,
profiting. So people,
yes,
you're making money to get people to your webinar. You
yes,
usually got to pay
yes.
for that. I love
Yes,
that.
it was great, and maybe we'll move back to that model someday soon. But I again, like, I did it as a test to see, but it validated this idea that I could run this on evergreen.
Yeah.
And I haven't turned it off since the summer because it's performing. Like,
Why not?
the
Yeah.
ads are converting, the calls are getting booked in, people are enrolling. So
And are you still doing all the sales calls right now?
it's me and one other person. I've
One
hired
person.
one
Okay.
other person.
Great. I love it. Man,
Oh,
you
yeah.
have built quite the machine over the past year, and it's been amazing to watch. And getting your voice note or the message, whenever it was a month ago or something was like, it was a highlight for me, because obviously you want all of your students to see success and hit their goals, but you went above like the goal that we had set out to achieve. Even like hearing that you're hitting $40,000 a month sometimes is pretty, like, that's like mind blowing to me. Because when you came in, I remember like on the sales call, you're like, Brandon, do you think I can get to $10,000 months? Actually, I think you might have said 20. I thought you might have said
Maybe.
20.
Maybe. I mean, maybe I did.
And I was
I
like,
didn't believe it could happen. I didn't believe. And that's why I think before I even enrolled, I'm like, do you actually think this will work? Is this a thing? Is this
yeah,
actually going to be my reality? My
yeah,
reality.
yeah.
You were like, yeah.
And I remember, I'll be
Like,
honest with you, I remember thinking 10, you're at 5 to get you to 10. That's not going to be a problem. Like, that's already done in my head.
that's
But
no
then like,
brainer. But Brandon, really? Is it really?
but I remember thinking 20, I think we can do that. But like 10 was a guarantee to me. 20 was like, yeah, I think so. And then here we are with someone's hitting 40. And so, it's just, I think a testament to like when you truly understand your people and you have great messaging which, by the way, strategy wise, you're not doing anything super tricky, or it's just a traditional like add to a webinar, to book a call, to close on a call, right? The strategy is just basic, but when you combine that with a good understanding of who you're speaking to, great messaging, and a great offer, and they work together, it's just, that's when the explosions of sales start to happen. And so I'm really thankful for you to come on and share your story with us today. If you could boil down, and I don't know if this is even possible, but the number one thing you did to bring these sort of results, what would you say it was? Like, what item had the biggest impact for you?
Yeah, I honestly can very confidently say it's my messaging. It's the way I'm speaking to my audience that is reaching their subconscious, because it's the common denominator in every step of our funnel. From the second someone sees our ad or some organic content on social until they're on a discovery call with us.
Yeah.
It's the messaging is consistent across, and it's solely based on what they are experiencing that is creating the stress and frustration and worry for them.
Yeah.
Hands down, there's no question.
Making them feel heard and understood. I love it.
That's it. Like the validation that you get me, you see me, you hear me, you actually know what I'm going through.
Yeah. It's huge.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's it.
Well, Cori, I appreciate you being here and sharing this with us. So thank you. Thank you. And then if anyone wants to learn more about what you do, and maybe someone's going through potty training issues with their kids and listening right now, where can they go to work with you or learn more about you?
Yeah, you can connect with me either on Instagram at Cori_Stern. And then on Facebook, I have a Facebook group. It's called My Child is Toilet Trained, but ...
I love it.
Because everyone who speaks to us will say, my child's toilet trained, but they're not doing their bowel movements on the toilet.
Yeah.
So it's the ongoing joke where I'm like, okay, they're half trained, they're not trained. Like, so it's just, again, I mulled over a name for the group. And
I think it's great.
I was talking to a friend and she's like, well, what do all these parents always say to you? And I'm like, they always tell me my kid's toilet trained, but they're having accidents and not using the toilet. I'm like, okay.
That's an example of great messaging. And it's because a lot of times my biggest thing with offers is that people always create offers and they just say what the thing is. It's like you get 5 one-on-one calls with me and this and that. And for the Facebook group, you could call it like potty training for toddlers, because that's what it is. But the idea that you said my child's potty trained, but like, that's just great messaging, because that's literally the conversation they're having. Like, even in the names of stuff, you're mastering it. So I love it. So, yeah. So guys, go check it out. Go check out Cori. And by the way, if anyone's listening and you're like, okay, I'm ready to get help with my messaging and strategy and have Brandon look at my stuff, like what we were able to do with Cori, you guys can go to brandonlucero.com/call, book a call with our team, or just find a clip from this podcast episode on Instagram. leave us a message or a DM. We'd be happy to have a conversation to see if and how we can help you. So thank you all for listening. I'll see you everyone next week for a brand new episode. Take care, and we'll talk then.
Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested, and thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.